What's up, everybody? It's been a little while since I did a vlog, and I was just sitting here thinking this morning that 17 years ago, I boarded a plane for the first time in my life. I was 23. Was finishing out my junior year in college. I went to school a little bit after high school. Sort of a long story, but I worked for a little bit, and then I went back to college when I should have been graduating, and I started a 4-year program in graphic design when I was 21. So anyway, 17 years ago today, I was finishing out my junior year of college, and I had been picked for an exchange program to study in Germany. So I boarded a plane. I'd never been on a plane before, 23 years old, and I flew to Germany by myself for 4 months. Now, Germany is very, since the wall came down, it's a very Western sort of country. But where I was going was East Germany. And even though the wall had come down and, a dozen years or so before that, this small town in Germany was very isolated. It was very much still an Eastern German town. It's where the Bauhaus School of Design was. It's in Dessau, Germany, and which has been renamed Hochschule Anhalt, which is the school I was going to study design for 4 months. So this place was very isolated. They either spoke German or Russian. No one spoke English except the students. And I was going with another American student in my class, but when I landed in Amsterdam, as part of my layover, I exited the plane and there was someone standing there with a sign that said Scrivens on it. And I was like, what? I'd never been across the ocean, and now I'm stepping out of a plane after 10 hours and someone's got my name on a card, and I had to call home, and I had to figure out how to call home because at this time, even though cell phones were around, not everybody had them, and certainly I didn't have one, and I didn't have an international one, so I had to figure out all these numbers to call internationally back home. And come to find out, John, the American student that was going with me, was going to be late. Apparently he mistook when he would be coming. I was supposed to meet him in Amsterdam, and he mistook the time and would not be there for about 3 or 4 more days. So anyway, I had to figure out my way to get around Amsterdam for a little bit and then get on a plane and get my connecting flight to Berlin, and then get picked up in Berlin and driven 2 hours south to this small town of Dessau. And when I arrived at the dormitory that I was staying at for the time I was there, no one was there yet because school wasn't starting for another 3 or 4 days. So I was completely alone in this big building and in the middle of kind of nowhere. I lost my way to get to town that night in the dark. I finally found my way and finally was able to get some food. I had about 100 marks on me, Deutschmarks. This was before they switched over to euros. So I had some money on me, but things closed very early, and it was very hard to get any kind of food. And then for several days, I was sort of kind of wandering. In fact, the following morning, I was awoken by the superintendent of the building slamming into my door, trying to open it, pounding on it, and screaming at me in German. I didn't understand a lot of German at the time. I'd only taken it in high school, which had been 5, 6, 7 years before that. And very rapidly, I was trying to understand what he was saying to me, and it was something to the effect of, get out, and you didn't pay, something to the fact, and all I could say was, Entschuldigung, verstehe ich nicht, which meant, I'm sorry, I don't understand you. I guess my point is, to all of this, is I was thrown so far out of my comfort zone that I didn't know, honestly, how I was going to deal with it. And for the next 4 months, I made friends, so I traveled. We went to Prague, we went to the Baltic Sea and spent the night on the beach. We went to Heidelberg, went to Dresden. I got to drive on the Autobahn, going 130 miles an hour and having the gas pedal get stuck to the floor and ever accelerating and not being able to stop and having to pull an evasive maneuver off the road and stop the car before it blew up the transmission. That's a whole other story. Almost got my ass kicked by a neo-Nazi, witnessed a lot of protests against Nazis. It was really a fascinating time, 4.5 months. And at the end of my time, my girlfriend at the time, which is now my wife, she was meeting me in Munich, which is down in Bavaria region, western area of Germany. And we were going to meet up together and then travel around Italy for a few weeks because her family's from there. And when she arrived, it's her first time in Europe as well, and she landed and I got her off the plane and we had to get trains over into downtown Munich and all these things. And I just remember seeing kind of like the awe in her face of how you navigate and try to get around with a different language and all of these things. And at the time, for me, it was second nature because I'd been there and I didn't really realize how much I had learned or how far I had come in just that time until I saw the contrast look on her face. And I realized that, this 4 months was like a boot camp. It was like me just getting this life experience I'd never had ever. I mean, I was, again, 23 years old. Now I was still living at home. I was going to college, but I was going to a college here in town, so I was commuting, and I'd never lived on my own. I'd never done any of these things that required sort of these life skills, and I felt like these 4 months had really I'd kind of thrown myself into the fire and had to deal with a lot of stuff, emotional stuff and things, and I felt like I grew a lot in those times. It wasn't even about the school. The school was great, but it was all about life experience. And I personally feel that set the tone for a lot of things that happened in my life after that. When I arrived back home, things were different. After several months home, I realized I'd been putting on some weight that I didn't like. I don't know, I just didn't feel right about myself. I was probably a lot more sedentary than I was when I was in Germany because I was riding my bike everywhere there. And for the first time, again, in my life, I decided to work out. I'd always wanted to run or work out or things, but I never stuck to it. And for whatever reason, I stuck to it. And I lost 50 pounds in 6 months just by diet and working out. But I think I did that and I stuck to it because I developed some sort of confidence while being in Germany. And I also think that's what led me to start my business. I'd always had ideas. I'd always wanted to do things. I'd always wanted to start things, but I would never follow through. But I think having this confidence of, hey, well, I just went over to a foreign country by myself pretty much and had to figure it out. I think you just develop a certain amount of confidence when you do things like that. And I'm not sitting here saying you need to fly to Germany to get out of your comfort zone, but I also think doing things that scare you, that you see and in your heart know that you want to try or do, but you're just too afraid and you make up excuses for why not to do them. I think you just have to do them. I think you just have to throw yourself into a situation where you don't know if you can get out of it and figure it out. And you gain confidence and you gain this sense of self that you can take and do other things with. And I truly believe that something like a semester in Germany, relates to me starting and honestly continuing on with a business that has seen many struggles and faced a lot of ups and downs with it. I feel like that really set the tone. So if anything, get out of your comfort zone. Again, maybe you don't need to fly to Germany, but it does help to do something that you normally wouldn't do. So I'm just gonna go enjoy some German beer that I had when I was over there. But anyway, I hope that helps. And again, I love your comments. Subscribe. Tell me what you think below. Shoot me an email. Shoot me a comment, and I'll see you in the next one.